as well as Facebook Live for this paid political programming time by the Not One Penny PAC, and talking about what the Not One Penny PAC is about. And the topic of discussion today is Ken Davidson, who, of course, no stranger to these airways, been on numerous times. I think I might have been on with you and Chuck at one point, like might have been last year at some time.
I think so.
But I know you've been on with Tony and Ron Harlow, with everybody.
And Chuck, yeah.
And Chuck as well, right? So, before we really get into, the issue at hand, just kind of,
I thought about inviting Chuck today, but I thought he would just scream taxation is theft the entire time. So.
He would talk about all his concerns that he has. I think that would have took up the full 25 minutes. But for those who might not have, seen you through Jet TV or heard you on WJOB before, if you want to let everyone know, who you are and why you're here today.
Well, my name is Ken Davidson, and the school is seeking two referenda. Everybody calls it the referendum, but it's actually two referenda. We'll get into that a little bit more in a second. Seeking tax increases for the next 8 and 24 years, respectively. I want to at least make the case that they have not been good stewards of our money at this point, that the burden of proving that they deserve additional money is on them, and that residents should consider whether or not they deserve an increase in taxes.
Perfect. And how you want to start? You can go right ahead.
Okay. So, let's start off with the referenda. There's a capital referenda and an operating referendum. Okay. And from the Department of Local Government Finance, the state of Indiana website, the resolution says, let me get to it here. Shall the school city of Hammond increase property taxes paid to the school corporations by homeowners and businesses? If this public question is approved by the voters, the average property tax paid to the school corporation per year on a residence would increase by 35.76%. And the average property tax paid to the school corporation on a business property would increase by 32.45%. The school corporation may issue bonds or enter into a lease for the renovation, improvements, construction of additions, equipping, and general improvements at academic buildings of the school corporation, including but not limited to renovations and additions at Hammond Central High School, which we just built, and Morton High School, which is estimated to cost $84,220,000 over 25 years. The most recent property tax referendum within the boundaries of the political subdivision for which this public question is being considered was proposed by the school city of Hammond in 2017 and passed. So that is the capital referendum. Okay. So now let's go down to the operating referendum. Here is the resolution, and I apologize for the delay. I have to scroll through.
Oh, no, totally okay.
Let's see.
Again, talking about some really large amounts of money at stake, too, for Hammond residents.
Well, I do want to point out, and I could do this while I'm scrolling through here, that these are, each of them among themselves, are among the largest referenda ever proposed in the state of Indiana. Each one. So right now, I believe it's Lake Station has, as a percentage, a larger one. That would be the largest single referendum ever proposed in the state of Indiana. These are among the largest each. Okay. And so you put the two of them together, and they are by far the largest amount of money ever asked for from taxpayers in the state of Indiana in a working class community.
Right.
Where property values are skyrocketing. So they're getting increases in taxes anyway. The second referendum says, shall the school city of Hammond continue to impose increased property taxes paid to the school corporation by homeowners and businesses for 8 years, immediately following the holding of the referendum for the purpose of funding the Renew Our Hammond Schools, Invest in Our Community program, consisting of teaching positions, staff positions, educational programs, school programs, school bus transportation programs, school health, equity, safety, and security programs at a continued property tax rate of 0.44. The property tax increase requested in this referendum was originally approved by the voters in 2017, and if extended, will increase the average property tax. Will increase the average property tax paid to the school corporation per year on a residence within the school corporation by 50.37%. And if extended, will increase the average property tax paid to the school corporation per year on a business property within the school corporation by 45.07%.
So not just affecting homeowners, but business owners as well.
Exactly. Small businesses that have been hurt by the pandemic,
Right.
by the multiple road closures, all of those things. Kennedy Avenue business, I don't know how they're making it. We had one that came to, one of our meetings, and he said, I don't know what I'm going to do if this passes.
Right. And then because you have, as you mentioned, with the construction, a lot's been going on in Indianapolis Boulevard, Columbia, Calumet as well.
Kennedy, though, has been down for 3 years.
Right, yes.
I mean, that's just insane.
A lot longer than anybody. So with coming the increased taxes, do you believe that when the schools do get this increased amount of money going through, if they're spending it wisely, or do you think they have been at all?
If I thought they were spending it wisely, I would probably be in support. And so there's a couple of points that I do want to make about that. In addition to the doubling at least of the revenue from the original referendum. So from 2017 until now, the amount that they're getting from the original referendum has more than doubled. And the way that works is as your assessed valuation goes higher, your effective tax rate increases also. Just like if you make more money. If I make $40,000, I pay 15% tax. If I make $80,000, I pay 35% tax rate, right? Mm-hmm. So we have exemptions on our property tax bill. Most people who live in their home that they are being taxed on have a homestead exemption. And that is the number that's being thrown around all the time for a homesteader. So the homestead exemption is $45,000 plus 33% of anything over $45,000. So what you could see there is that first 45 is zero. If you look at Hammond, where in 2017, most homes were under $100,000. So let's take $100,000 gross assessed valuation, which is the number before the exemptions, right? You would be at, and to calculate the net assessed valuation without a calculator, I'm going to use relatively rough numbers, but $100,000 minus $45,000 is $55,000, right? And so a third of that is $18,333. So you would have $63,333 in exemptions, with leaving you at $36,700, roughly $677 net assessed valuation. That's what you would be taxed on, $33,677. That's what the school would apply this referendum rate to, and that's what they would receive. Okay? If you take a $200,000 gross assessed valuation, now you've got $45,000, right, with a remainder of $150,000. So on $150,000, you've got roughly another $40,000. I'm not going to be as good with the bigger numbers. I don't know why. But on the $150,000, you've got $45,000 and $45,000. You've got about $49,500, right, at 33%. So you have $104,000 in exemptions. So now you have a $96,000 net assessed valuation. So
as you said, more than doubled from the last one,
exactly,
from the original.
Exactly. So your original was at what did we say, 33?
Yes.
So it's actually tripled your tax bill when your assessment doubled.
Right. And then in 2017, of course, a lot's changed with the School City of Hammond Corporation. Of course, you no longer have Gavitt High School. You don't have Clark as well. I believe it was just those two, or am I forgetting one? I think
there were some elementary schools.
Okay, yes,
Jefferson, I believe. There were some elementary schools. I think there were 5 total schools closed. So, but in addition to you paying 3 times as much, remember, they're receiving 3 times as much. and still are having to issue what are called tax anticipation warrants, which are basically payday loans that they pay about 5 points up front plus 6% interest. So last year they borrowed on a payday loan $10 million. So when their tax money comes in, they have to pay back $10 million. They probably only got $9 million, but they have to pay back 10. And when you get into that cycle of dependence on that payday loan type of scheme, just like an individual, if I say I have to have something right now and I put it on my credit card, what happens next month? I'm short for something else, right?
Right, exactly.
Or I have to earn more money. Well, I don't have the option to go to the voters and ask them, hey, can you give me more money?
Right. You don't have that option again as an individual, but when you're a school corporation, then you have multiple ways to kind of get that revenue when you're seeking it. But as you said, of course, with the almost tripling in value, it really opens up a lot of eyes to the people who are residents in the city of Hammond.
Well, and it raises the question, what did they do with it? So let's talk about one of the things that's happened since 2017. You mentioned closing the schools. As soon as they closed the schools, and I brought this up beforehand, but I'm not here to tell you I told you so, the transportation costs skyrocketed. They now want about $5 million in the referendum just for transportation. So the referendum for operating, which they're saying goes to teacher salaries and all these things, about $5 million per year out of that referendum will go just to transportation. Now, those costs are probably going to increase in the next couple of years, too.
And now, in terms of transportation, what does that fully imply? Like, is that just, bus transportation services for kids going to school and from school, or is that like other aspects as well? That
we're not sure of. I mean, we don't have answers to those questions. And that brings me to my other point. But the transportation costs have skyrocketed. They are approximately $8 million per year in this year's budget. Versus virtually nothing, just a few years ago. We used to transport primarily special needs children and things like that. Now we have to transport people from Clark to Hammond Central. We have to transport people from the Gavitt area to Hammond Central, and I think some go to Morton. Elementary students, we have to transport out of their own neighborhoods. Those transportation issues also cause negative educational outcomes. There are studies that show that the more time you spend on a bus, the less likely you are to succeed in the classroom, your attention span's lower, all of those things. If you have to get up at, leave your house at 7:30 in the morning, you don't get home till 4:30 in the afternoon, and you have homework, that has a serious impact on your educational outcomes. What we're looking for the most cost-effective way to educate the students properly. We're not opposed to education. I mean, their answer is, well, you don't support education then. Of course we support education, but you're not doing the job. So I do want to make the point, and I'm getting off track on my notes, so as you can see,
it's totally okay.
But they are asking you for more money. And so you have the right to ask them questions. And if they don't adequately answer those questions, then it's your responsibility to say no. In this case, I don't think that they have adequately addressed where all of the money went. In addition to the doubling or tripling of the income from the prior referendum, last year alone, they received $48 million in COVID funding. An astronomical amount versus what other schools of similar sizes received. Lake Central has 9,600 students, I believe. Hammond has 10,200. Lake Central received $9 million in COVID funds. Hammond received 48 and is on schedule to receive, or may have already received, another $16 million. They could have used that money for air conditioning at Morton. COVID funds can be used for HVAC systems. They did not do that. And I think, this is my opinion solely, that they did not do that because they knew they were coming with a referendum for more taxes and they could spend that money elsewhere. And there are no answers as to where that money went. At a school board meeting, Carlotta Blake King is asking, how are we helping the children with this? Where are where's the spending on our educational outcomes? Where's the spending on things that are going to help the children? They didn't have any answers for that.
And so it's more seeking out the answers as to where it's actually been going. And now I know you mentioned before that we might have some callers coming in calling onto the phone line as well, and 219-845-1100 for anyone who just wants to speak on this issue. But one thing real quick, so when it comes to the COVID funding, so it can only be used for specific things involved with the school. Like it can't just go to anything in general, or it's only pertained to like a certain aspect of
any
school.
Federal funding has strings, but because it was COVID, and I did research on this, and anybody can do their own research, because it was COVID, one of the things that they strongly encouraged was for people to upgrade their HVAC systems for cleaner air and things like that. I mean, imagine around the country, there's schools with really old HVAC systems,
Oh, yes.
right? So they gave this money to schools and said, upgrade your HVAC systems, which is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, by the way, in case, I think everybody knows that term, just in case. And now they're coming at us and saying, we need this referendum for air conditioning at Morton. Well, you have $64 million to do air conditioning at Morton. Why isn't it done?
Right. I think we can go to the phone lines now. Rob, I know we were supposed to have one specific caller at 4:45. Do we have them on? Okay, let's bring them in right now. Caller, you are live on the air.
Hey, Robert.
Hey, how's it going? This is Robert from Robertsdale.
Hey, Rob, how's it going?
It's going all right. I'm actually calling from the community that probably be hit the hardest. You know, assessed values in Robertsdale are higher than most parts in Hammond, other than the historic district. And we have the smallest representation, so we will be hit the hardest. So I'm encouraging everyone from Robertsdale to vote no on this referendum. As you know, Ken's been mentioning, and I've been listening. You know, he's right. You know, it's mismanagement of everything. You know, even the lies that they send over. I mean, I received a mailer about don't you know, if you vote yes, or the state will take over. I mean that's not going to happen. I mean, there was a law that was passed, I believe, in 2021 or 2022 that they overturned that. The states don't no longer take over.
I want to interject here, because I want to challenge Scott Miller or any board member to provide me with any statutory authority that would allow the state to take over the Hammond, the school city of Hammond. There is no statutory authority.
It doesn't exist.
Let's make this clear. It is not possible at this point in time for the state of Indiana to take over the Hammond schools absent of bankruptcy.
Exactly. And then I didn't know this. I did my own research, and being a resident of Hammond, I'm voting no on this referendum. And when I say lies, they lied. There was a situation. I was at the Morton High School meeting with Scott Miller, and it was more of a sales pitch with a PowerPoint presentation. And, you know, people were polite. There was one individual that, you know, was a little heated and, you know, kind of was interrupting. But the interruption was just asking to read the referendum verbatim. And, you know, it was what it was. They refused to read the referendum, but he was approached by, you know, I found out later that it was a school board member, and it was public. And two individuals actually intervened and said, hey, he has every right to speak his mind. But you can clearly hear her tell him to shut the F word up. So an elected school board member is silencing an individual trying to voice or just try to speak. And
actually getting heated and using profanity. Is that correct?
Well, not the individual asking this.
No, the school board member.
It was one word. It was just one word. It was one word that was dropped, you know, and it was heard. But it was what it was. I'm just saying that people have the right. People are upset about this. It's too high, in my opinion. And I'm glad that, you know, this PAC has gotten together, and then, you know, we're seeing the vote no. And, you know, Ken, I mean, thank you for doing this, and continue doing what you guys are doing. Definitely going to vote no, and I encourage everyone from the state of from Hammond, Indiana, to do the same, or it's going to really impact our pockets. And I'll hang up and let you guys continue. All
right, thank you for the phone call, Rob. Yeah, and I know we have another caller scheduled right after that, so we can bring them on as well. Caller, you are live on the air.
Hello.
Yes, we're here.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Hello, Ken. How you doing?
Good.
This is Michael Opinker calling. I've been a lifelong resident of Hammond, Hessville area all my life. I'm a product of all the Hammond schools. We're starting with Orchard Drive, Scott, and graduated from Morton in '79. And the way the schools were in the day were awesome. I mean, they were unbelievable. And we got to work with these schools. Yes, I was on the city council. It's been about, you know, a little over 7 years, 8 years. And I was always told it's a separate identity. Stay out of it, Opie. It's nothing to do with that. If I get my 5th district councilman seat back, I'm going to use every resource available to work with these schools to make them right again. I mean, somebody's got to do something. Somebody's got to step up. And if we don't do that, we're at a loss. I mean, the Hammond schools were great. I mean, I've had great teachers in my day, and I still keep in contact with some of them that are still around. And I know a lot of the school teachers in the city. And like I said, with this referendum, if this money was going for the students and the teachers, yes, I'd be all for it. But from what it sounds like, it's a no-win for the taxpayers. So like I said, if elected again to my 5th district councilman seat, I'm going to use every resource I can to get on the bandwagon and work with these schools. And it is what it is.
Thank you. I do want to thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for the phone call, Mike.
I do want to make a couple of other points. I'm getting some text messages. Make sure you cover this. But there was one other point that I did want to make. We did a couple of other points that I did want to make, and we don't have a ton of time. But we did a sample at 6% increase over the 8 years of the referendum. Actually, this is courtesy of Rick Vobrick, who was he was a Morton teacher. He was a teacher at Morton when I was there, a great teacher, and a coach. And if you're an AV of 175 in year 1, and year 8 will be 263, 135 as far as the gross AV, and the net AV will be 82, 550 in year 1, and 139, 837 in year 8. The tax would be, it looks like $363 per referendum, so 726, I'm sorry, in the first year, and $615 per referendum in year 8 for $1,230. So, I mean, you see how the increases are going to be there if you vote for this. That's going to continue to cost you.
And it's just going to go higher and higher.
Yes, higher and higher, exactly, every year. As does everything, and I understand schools get more expensive. We have to find a fix for this. The schools there's just so many things that they waste money on. I couldn't buy enough time to tell you all the things. So one of the things that I saw in an article somebody sent me just last night, I already knew that approximately $5 million of the operating referendum over the 8 years will go to HAST. Scott Miller, the superintendent of schools, for those who don't know, was interviewed by the Post-Tribune, and he said also that the dollars are going to follow the students. So some of your tax money will also be going to Gary and East Chicago charter schools. That's an article that is posted on the Hammond School Referendum Facebook page right now. I would urge people to go there, click join that group. We can get you some more information. We at least I try to encourage people who are in favor of the referenda and people who are opposed. I want a good, healthy, meaningful debate on this. If somebody could show me how this will help kids, how busing, $8 million on busing is going to help kids, how a proposal to build a field house at Morton is going to help educate kids, how teaching the kids' parents English as a second language is going to help kids, then I would say, let's do it. All we're asking is the most efficient use of our resources.
To where that it's going to something that's not necessarily profitable, but for down the line, it's just a positive impact for the kids in the city of Hammond.
Absolutely, and I believe this was hastily thrown together. They have 1 year left on the current referendum. So if this referendum fails, they will have 1 year left. They can then come back with a lesser proposal with concrete proposals to increase student outcomes, to educate our children properly, and say, hey, look, we've cut things to the bone. This is what we need. We've done everything we can. No more. Let's talk about the administrators real quick. We have, so again, comparing to Lake Central, about 9,600 students. It could be 9,200. If I'm wrong on that, I apologize. It's been a couple of days since I looked at it, but it's over 9,000. We're down to 10,200 students. I looked on the state website. They have 8 total administrators making over $100,000. We have 24, including one making over 200,000.
And then we can talk more about that. I know this will end this portion of the paid political time brought to you by the Not One Penny PAC. Of course, Ken, I know I don't know if it's you necessarily, but someone else will be on next Monday, November 6th, 4:30, the same time as well. Thank you, Ken, and thank you to Mike and Rob who called in. For those who didn't get a chance, you can get another opportunity next Monday afternoon. Until then, everyone, thank you for watching on Facebook Live, on the Jet TV Network, and listening on WJOB, the voice and face of the region in Hammond, Indiana.